Chapter 946. Past Grudges and Hatred. In the past, Blazing Heaven Demoness suffered from time path injuries. Thus she had placed hope in He Fan's time path inheritance. Thereupon, Blazing Heaven Demoness began to make arrangements. She took charge of Su tribe, changed her third sister's name to Su Xian Heir, and intentionally made her approach He Chung to enter He tribe. He Chung and Su Xian Heir were both in love with each other, becoming a immortal couple, and Su Xian's night elopement thus became a famous story. Su Xian Heir did not forget her task and tried to find out information of He Fan's inheritance, but she gradually exposed her traces in the process. He tribe began investigating and got knowledge of Fairy Li Shan, making them think this was Snowy Mountain's plot. Su Xian Heir, however, was truly in love with He Chung, so she did not leave He tribe. Afterwards, He Chung secretly killed Su Xian Heir and prolonged his life. After learning of their younger sister's sacrifice, Blazing Heaven Demoness and Fairy Li Shan felt incomparable grief. Fairy Li Shan blamed Blazing Heaven Demoness and believed she was the reason for their sister's death. Later on, Fairy Li Shan completely fell out with Blazing Heaven Demoness. Blazing Heaven Demoness felt ashamed and guilty, but she was heavily injured and could not take revenge. She had also taken position as the leader of Northern Plains Zombie Alliance. She could not act independently easily and could only go far away towards Eastern Sea. When she passed the regional wall, it was a nearly fatal experience in Eastern Sea. She gradually had some fortuitous encounters from the clues she had gathered at Northern Plains. For instance, an inheritance left behind by old immortal Kong Ju allowed Blazing Heaven Demoness to have a method of seizing another person's immortal aperture. These fortuitous encounters provided great help to Blazing Heaven Demoness and partially alleviated her injuries. For a long time, Fairy Li Shan did not contact Blazing Heaven Demoness, but when Fairy Li Shan took in He Lu Lan, instructed and helped her cultivate, and saw her growth, Fairy Li Shan gradually began to let go of her hatred. She hoped He Lu Lan could receive better help and support. Recently, Fairy Li Shan had completely calmed down and began to use information path methods to contact Blazing Heaven Demoness. Both sides started to communicate with each other. Blazing Heaven Demoness thus learned of Xing Xiangzi's identity and began to scheme, because Fang Yuan just happened to need Star Thought Immortal Gu. Blazing Heaven Demoness was able to smoothly set an agreement with Fang Yuan when she made use of Zombie Alliance's power to return to Northern Plains. She wanted to resolve her countless years of shame and guilt to He Lu Lan. She wanted to use all her strength to make it up to He Lu Lan. She wanted to make up for the mistakes she made in the past. She viewed things through He Lu Lan's perspective and thought of ways to support her. What was most important to He Lu Lan? Without doubt, it was self-strength Immortal Gu. First of all, He Lu Lan possessed the great strength true martial physique and cultivated strength path. Self-strength Immortal Gu was a strength path Immortal Gu and was perfect for He Lu Lan. Second, self-strength Immortal Gu was an inheritance given to He Lu Lan by Su Xian Heir. As far as He Lu Lan was concerned, it was not just a rank 6 Immortal Gu. It was an extremely important keepsake of her mother. Thus, Blazing Heaven Demoness thought of every way possible to take self-strength Immortal Gu back for He Lu Lan. But she encountered a problem. From the communication with Fairy Li Shan, Blazing Heaven Demoness got an understanding of Fang Yuan. She was startled and wary of Fang Yuan's craftiness, and also saw her own image in him. On one hand, Fang Yuan was very proficient in scheming. On the other hand, Fang Yuan could take life-threatening risks and was not afraid of death. In pleasant words, it was bravery. In ugly words, it was thuggish and unscrupulous behavior. If I can't get benefits, you also can stop dreaming about them. If you want to fight, then come. It is just death at worst. This attitude was like that of Blazing Heaven Demoness, destroying a fragment world of the immemorial 9 heavens. As a result, Blazing Heaven Demoness had agreed to help Fang Yuan refine an Immortal Gu and set an agreement with him. Blazing Heaven Demoness would help fund Fang Yuan with immortal materials, but Fang Yuan would be in debt to her. Whether he succeeded or not in refining the Immortal Gu, he would need to pay her back later. The longer he dragged this on, the more interest Blazing Heaven Demoness would receive. If Fang Yuan successfully refines the Immortal Gu but fails to return her the sum in 100 years, Then Blazing Heaven Demoness would be allowed to take any one immortal goo from Fang Yuan as compensation. Any one immortal goo was the key. Blazing Heaven Demoness was targeting the self-strength immortal goo that Fang Yuan possessed. Right now, as she saw Fang Yuan's attitude, Blazing Heaven Demoness raised her eyebrows and spoke frankly. Right, I want self-strength immortal goo. Return the immortal goo to Little Lawn. It was hers after all. If she could directly take it, Blazing Heaven Demoness would have already done so and absolutely would not have gone through such trouble. But even if she was a Fire Path Great Grandmaster, she could not forcibly take immortal goo. The immortal goo was already refined by Fang Yuan and could be destroyed instantly with just a thought from him, like old ancestor Shui, who had extremely strong attainment in Ice Path, but had no way to take the mysterious immortal goo inside the blazing glory lightning. Brilliance immortal zombie. Unless they were a wisdom path goo immortal who suppressed Fang Yuan and made sure he could not take action in thinking, or someone who had great accomplishment in Theft Path. Theft Path was created by Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable. His signature immortal killer move, Formless Hand, was feared by countless goo immortals. Blazing Heaven Demoness, Fairy Li Shan, and He Lu Lan did not have wisdom path methods, and Theft Path was not a mainstream path, despite it being created by Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable. Besides him, other cultivators of Theft Path were generally not able to achieve anything significant. If Blazing Heaven Demoness and the others had Theft Path methods, they could directly steal the immortal goo from Fang Yuan's aperture. Given they had set this up, the possibility of this was very small, especially when Fang Yuan had wisdom path attainment. Blazing Heaven Demoness felt even more cautious regarding taking action. Blazing Heaven Demoness directly demanded self-strength immortal goo. Fang Yuan remained silent. Blazing Heaven Demoness' reason was not very justifiable. Fang Yuan had obtained self-strength immortal goo fair and square. If he had not saved He Lu Lan, she would have already lost her life in the dream realm. That it could be said that Fang Yuan was He Lu Lan's benefactor. However, Fang Yuan did not want to speak of this. Such words were useless. Why would there be discussion about benevolence with those of fierce character? Moreover, back then when Fang Yuan helped He Lu Lan, he also did not hold any good intentions. That if he talked about this, Blazing Heaven Demoness and the others would instead look down on him. A bigger fist is the best and the strongest reason. If I were stronger, I would not need to fear Blazing Heaven Demoness extortion. Unfortunately, I cannot even escape right now. My cultivation is stagnant. My strength is too low. Fang Yuan was self-aware that he knew it was impossible for him to not hand over self-strength immortal GU to in the current situation. The enemy was strong while he was weak, like meat on the chopping block. But it was not that he did not have any cards in his hands. Firstly, there is the previous agreement. The agreement states allies cannot harm each other. But Fairy Li Shan is an information path goo immortal. She had openly violated the agreement when we invaded Dongfang tribe's blessed land. The value of this is rather small. Secondly, immortal goo are not easy to plunder. It is because of this that Blazing Heaven Demoness and the others had to make arrangements to trap me. But the value of this can only be at a middling level. I cannot overestimate its use. Blazing Heaven Demoness has the ability to capture me alive. If she put aside all considerations and decided to do so, wouldn't I be like that blazing glory lightning brilliance immortal zombie that fell into old ancestor Shuehu's hands? Thirdly, there is Purple Mountain True Monarch. He Lu Lan and others don't know this is only a lie. Earlier, I used this lie to deceive Tai by Yunsheng. But who could have thought it would instead become my greatest trump card at this moment? Fang Yuan was not wrong. After Blazing Heaven Demoness knew of Purple Mountain True Monarch, she treated such information with great importance. She was quite wary of this mysterious Purple Mountain True Monarch. If Purple Mountain True Monarch was a rank 8 goo immortal, and she captured his beloved disciple, the trouble stirred up in the future would not be small. Blazing Heaven Demoness had just approached old ancestor Shuehu and sought to trouble him. She naturally did not want herself to fall into the same situation. Even if Purple Mountain True Monarch was only rank 7, he still had many disciples. Fang Yuan claimed he was only a junior disciple and had senior disciples above him. Especially when this Purple Mountain True Monarch was extremely resourceful, He could arrange his disciple to enter Immortal Crane sect, but did Purple Mountain True Monarch really exist? He Lulan and Fairy Lishan were completely in the dark, and Blazing Heaven Demonis, who obtained information from them, also was deceived by this. Fang Yuan's silence made Blazing Heaven Demonis slightly impatient as she urged. Fang Yuan, what requests do you have? Say them, we can talk. Fang Yuan let out a breath. He had already planned it all inwardly, but he did not reply to Blazing Heaven Demonis' question, instead asking, those goo refinement immortal materials you gave me to refine star thought immortal goo, did you tamper with them? Blazing Heaven Demonis smiled. Of course. She actually admitted it. Moreover, she did not have even a trace of embarrassment on her face. Fang Yuan frowned. Actually, I had suspected this, but every time I refined goo, I inspected the immortal materials carefully. Why was I not able to find anything amiss? Blazing Heaven Demonis replied. That is because your fire path attainment has not reached great grandmaster level. I added a trace of fire path Dao marks on each fire path immortal material. The increase is very small, but it accumulates with every immortal material used and takes substantial effect during the refinement process, ruining the goo refinement. Blazing Heaven Demonis naturally had to do this if Fang Yuan succeeded in refining. How could she coerce Fang Yuan? Fang Yuan did not nag about this issue. He nodded and continued. I can return self-strength immortal goo, but I have some conditions. Hearing this, Fairy Lishan and He Lulan's hopes were raised. Blazing Heaven Demonis looked at Fang Yuan with slight surprise and clapped. Now I can somewhat understand why little sister wanted to suppress you. Speak, what are your requests? First of all, I want to form a new agreement. This agreement was the assurance for his safety. Although Fairy Lishan was an information path goo immortal and could have unknown methods to break the agreement, she would need to make preparations before doing so. At least during that period, Fang Yuan could escape safely. This is a must. Blazing Heaven Demonis agreed. Fang Yuan continued. Secondly, my debt of the immortal materials you lent to me before will be cleared. As long as you return self-strength immortal goo, this won't be a problem. Blazing Heaven Demonis replied straightforwardly. I want to leave Zombie Alliance and get rid of the alliance agreement with them. Okay. Finally, I want Strength Path immortal zombie corpses. You need to promise me that you will do your utmost to get me as many Strength Path immortal zombie corpses as possible. Fang Yuan's eyes shine brightly. Chapter 947, Nirvana Fire. He Lulan had Blazing Heaven Demonis protecting her. Fang Yuan could no longer target her if he could not obtain a super-grade blessed land. A high-grade blessed land was still very good. Tio achieved that. Fang Yuan needed a large number of ordinary Strength Path immortal zombie bodies. And in Northern Plains, who else could obtain more immortal zombie bodies than Blazing Heaven Demonis? Of course, Fang Yuan gave a valid-sounding excuse. If I give self-strength immortal goo to you, I will not have a useful Strength Path immortal goo with me. I need to refine a Strength Path immortal goo to replace it. The immortal goo recipe that I have needs a large number of Strength Path immortal zombie bodies. This excuse perfectly concealed the life and death immortal aperture revival method. Blazing Heaven Demonis could not reject him either. Blazing Heaven Demonis frowned deeply. If she agreed, she would have to pay a huge price. Earlier, old ancestor Shui who handed over some immortal zombies. A large number of Strength Path immortal zombies were among them. But if she gave them to Fang Yuan, Blazing Heaven Demonis' contribution to Zombie Alliance would be greatly diminished. Immortal zombies were very particular about preserving their corpses after dying. This was the last bit of pride they had. Old ancestor Shui who targeted the immortal zombie graveyard that caused Zombie Alliance to mobilize their forces to deal with this rank 8 expert, going into a state of frenzy disregarding the cost. That was because immortal zombie bodies were the bottom line of Zombie Alliance. Anyone who targets them will face the vengeance of Zombie Alliance. Old ancestor Shui who understood this as well. After the matter was exposed, even though he obtained a large number of immortal zombie bodies, he kept many of them without using them, leaving behind a way to settle the situation. Blazing Heaven Demonis thought, I can give the Strength Path immortal zombie bodies to Fang Yuan. This matter can be blamed on old ancestor Shui who. Nobody will suspect me. But the problem is, Fang Yuan wants to use immortal zombie bodies to refine immortal goo. Immortal goo were hard to refine. It was normal to fail. Blazing Heaven Demoness shook her head. She said to Fang Yuan, "If you keep failing in your refinement, would I have to provide you immortal zombie bodies unceasingly? That is impossible. As the leader of the Zombie Alliance branch, I am stealing from the inside. If I get exposed, the consequences are severe. How about this? You can give me a number. If it is reasonable, I will consider it." Fang Yuan thought about it and gave a number. Blazing Heaven Demoness immediately rejected him. The number was too large. It was too risky for even her to obtain this many strength path immortal zombie bodies. Next, both sides negotiated and eventually reached a consensus. Fang Yuan obtained a number of strength path immortal zombies that greatly exceeded the requirements for a high-grade blessed land. But on the surface, he pretended to be dissatisfied. "This is only enough for me to do 3 attempts at goo refinement." Fairy Li Shan snorted coldly. "Fang Yuan, I urge you not to get an inch and ask for a mile." Fang Yuan chuckled. He looked at Fairy Li Shan. "Back then, when He Lulan was trapped in the dream realm, why didn't you have this attitude?" These words made Fairy Li Shan slightly awkward. She was not as shameless as Blazing Heaven Demoness. "Talking more is pointless. We can form the new agreement now. Once the agreement is created, I will return self-strength immortal goo to you." Fang Yuan continued. "Wait." Blazing Heaven Demoness waved her hand. "Earlier, you stated your conditions. Now, it is my turn." Fang Yuan smiled bitterly internally. He knew that Blazing Heaven Demoness was not so easy to deal with. But Blazing Heaven Demoness' words made Fairy Li Shan and He Lulan extremely surprised. "I am willing to fund you to refine Star Thought immortal goo. I will not do anything to the immortal materials this time." Fang Yuan heard this and did not feel joy. He squinted as he went into high alert. Seeing Fang Yuan's vigilant state, Blazing Heaven Demoness smiled. She said, "Fang Yuan, I know that you have been looking for a revival method to get rid of your immortal zombie state. Look at this." Saying so, Blazing Heaven Demoness' body started to burn in raging flames. Orange-yellow flames covered Blazing Heaven Demoness' entire body. But the strange thing was, it was not hot. It was filled with life force and could give observers a feeling of warmth and hope. That it seemed harmless. But Fang Yuan took a few steps back vigilantly. Next, his eyes opened wide as he witnessed an unbelievable sight. In the burning flames, Blazing Heaven Demoness' immortal zombie body started to change. First, her 5-meter-tall zombie body shrunk rapidly, returning to a normal person's height. Next, her skin, which was rough and dark like tree bark, vanished in the flames. White and tender skin appeared on her, like a freshly peeled egg. Next, her immortal zombie hair, which looked like messy red wheat stalks, turned long and slim. The red color was vibrant and warm. Finally, Blazing Heaven Demoness' entire figure went through a complete transformation. From a scary giant zombie, she turned into a beautiful woman wearing a red dress. She had tender skin, sharp features. Her gaze was energetic, and her lips were bright red. Her chest was busty. It could barely be contained. Her legs were slim and long, yet they were also not thin. Most strikingly, her hair extended to waist length. It was burning red, giving off a dreamlike feeling, vibrant and overflowing with colors that in this wondrous flame. Blazing Heaven Demoness had performed an amazing display in front of Fang Yuan. She turned from an immortal zombie to a living person. Her entire aura also became stronger, like a gently burning flame, becoming larger and giving off loud noises. Other than giving people a sense of liveliness, her aura was also more overbearing. Blazing Heaven Demoness' face became more rosy, but Fairy Li Shan showed worry on her face. "Big sister, be careful of your injury." Blazing Heaven Demoness understood this, of course. The price she paid for this was not small. But seeing Fang Yuan's shining eyes and intense desire, she felt that it was worth it. Thus, she extinguished the flame on her body and used goo worms, turning her body taller and transforming from a beauty into a monster, becoming an immortal zombie again. Blazing Heaven Demoness said, "I have a time path injury on my body that causes my aging to accelerate hundreds of times. Without any choice, I had to become an immortal zombie. But you saw earlier that I can revive easily, changing between the immortal zombie and living goo immortal states. This is because of the immortal killer move that I used earlier, Nirvana Fire. Nirvana Fire? Fang Yuan felt some hope internally. Earlier, he did not care about it, because he already had the best revival method there was. But hearing Blazing Heaven Demoness words, Fang Yuan still was greatly excited. Using the Life and Death Immortal Aperture Revival method, I will turn into an ordinary goo immortal completely. My remaining lifespan will decrease accordingly. I cannot use wisdom goo after that, since my lifespan would be consumed rapidly under the light of wisdom. Furthermore, each immortal aperture can only use the Life and Death Immortal Aperture Revival method once. It cannot be repeated. If I can obtain this revival method and interchange between the states of immortal zombie and living goo immortal, that would be excellent. I would be able to use wisdom goo more optimally. Blazing Heaven Demoness observed his expression. Seeing that Fang Yuan was interested, she added chips to her side of the bargain. She took out immortal goo, saying to Fang Yuan, "This is my third request. You have to accept this gift." If it were an ordinary mortal goo, Fang Yuan would not take even a glance at it. But Fang Yuan could not look away from this mortal goo that Blazing Heaven Demoness took out. The reason was simple. This mortal goo was so valuable, even rank 9 venerables looked for it painstakingly. This was a lifespan goo. Blazing Heaven Demoness continued, "Fang Yuan, I know that you have little lifespan left. This lifespan goo can give you 60 years of life. After you change back, you will not be old." Fang Yuan sighed to himself deeply. Blazing Heaven Demoness gave 3 conditions. The first was to help Fang Yuan refine Star Thought Immortal Goo, and she promised that she would not tamper with the materials. The second was to give Fang Yuan a revival method. Most importantly, this revival method allowed Fang Yuan to turn into an immortal zombie freely and use wisdom goo fully. The third was a 60-year lifespan goo. It was a treasure that Fang Yuan had been looking for, rather than saying these 3 requests were Blazing Heaven Demoness conditions. They were more like bait that she was laying out in front of Fang Yuan. Facing such huge temptation, Fang Yuan felt excited. At the same time, his mood was heavy. He knew that Blazing Heaven Demoness was doing this for a reason. Thus, he cupped his fists at Blazing Heaven Demoness, saying seriously, "I cannot reject Blazing Heaven Demoness conditions. Please continue stating them." Fang Yuan could not reject her, because he did not have the strength to do so. Blazing Heaven Demoness raised her head and laughed. Fang Yuan understood the situation he was in. She was very pleased and finally stated her true objectives. Blazing Heaven Demoness had 6 true conditions. First, she wanted Fang Yuan to give her all of his eerie fire dragon pythons. Second, she wanted to enter into the Guts Goo business and become the largest buyer in the Guts Goo trades. Third, and the most important of them, she wanted Tai Bai Yunsheng to cooperate with her using man as before and landscape as before to try and heal the time path injury that she had. Fourth, she wanted to be able to borrow Fang Yuan's fixed immortal travel from now on to return to Eastern Sea. Fifth, she wanted Fang Yuan to make a deduction for her each year for free. The content could be related to finding immortal goo, deducing incomplete immortal goo recipes, and others. Sixth, if possible, she wanted to meet Fang Yuan's master, Purple Mountain True Monarch. Fang Yuan thought about this thoroughly. He could agree to the first request. Eerie Fire Dragon Pythons were related to Fire Path. They might be useful to Blazing Heaven Demoness, but Fang Yuan could do without them. The second request was for Blazing Heaven Demoness to enter into the Guts Goo trade and become a larger buyer than Immortal Crane Sect and Spirit Affinity House. Fang Yuan could accept this. With Blazing Heaven Demoness funding, perhaps the Guts Goo trade would expand even further. For the third request, if Fang Yuan talked to Tai Bai Yunsheng, he would not reject it. But man as before and landscape as before could not fall into Blazing Heaven Demoness hands. The fourth request involving fixed immortal travel was similar. Fang Yuan would not lend the immortal goo. At most, he would go along with Blazing Heaven Demoness. Fang Yuan directly agreed to the fifth request. The sixth request was nothing but Blazing Heaven Demoness trying to probe into Fang Yuan's background and the force behind him. This was impossible. Purple Mountain True Monarch did not exist. He was made up by Fang Yuan. Chapter 948, Attitude Goo. Central continent, heavenly court. The silver light in the sky seemed everlasting and indestructible. There were many halls on the ground, but there was silence, without any person around. There was an old tower standing tall and proud among the halls. This tower was covered in blemishes. It had over 3 million years of history. It was very famous. The immortal Gu house that star constellation Immortal Venerable created herself. Heaven overseeing tower. There was a huge refinement path Gu formation around heaven overseeing tower. In the 4 cores of the Gu formation, there were 4 rank 8 Gu immortals respectively, 3 male and 1 female, 1 old-looking and 3 young. At this moment, seeing that the huge Gu formation was gradually coming to a halt, the 4 heavenly court Gu immortals let out deep breaths. Their tense minds calmed down. Once they relaxed, Lin Jiusheng's body wavered. He could not stand upright. He sat down on the ground directly. The others were not any better. Bai Cong Shui's head was full of sweat, while Bai Chun Tian was pale. Heaven overseeing Tower Lord's aged face had even deeper wrinkles than before. Any of these 4 people, if they went outside, would be huge characters in Central Continent, or famous experts even in the 5 regions. But at this moment, they were all exhausted. It was as if they were extremely hungry, after having fought strong foes for 300 days, without any rest or sleep. After all, how could repairing the rank 9 Immortal Gu fate be so easy? Thinking about the difficulties when activating the Gu formation, Bai Cong Shui and the others felt immensely glad. One crucial step in repairing fate was to draw in Heaven's will. Heaven's will was grand and vast. A human's will was small and insignificant compared to it. The 4 Gu immortals endured much hardship to maintain their consciousness amidst the inflow of Heaven's will. Under this situation, minutes felt like years. They lasted for several hundred days and eventually succeeded. Good. Just now was a great success for repairing fate, Immortal Gu. Everyone has worked hard. Heaven overseeing Tower Lord carried his walking stick as he slowly got up. He looked at the Gu formation in the center with much joy, as Fate Immortal Gu floated above it. This Fate Immortal Gu was like a black and white spider. The red wound on its body had already shrunken by 30%. We finally succeeded. Bai Chun Tian sighed. Now that we succeeded, Fate Gu can already use 50% of its strength. Even if it is outside of Heaven overseeing Tower, it can start to show some effect. Lin Jiusheng said excitedly. Oh, what effect? Bai Cong Shui asked in puzzlement. Heaven overseeing Tower Lord was extremely tired, but he smiled and said, the effect of Fate Immortal Gu is fate itself. You have to know, all living beings in this world have certain paths in life that they follow. They cannot be allowed to change. After Red Lotus Demon Venerable harmed Fate Immortal Gu, the world went into chaos. Right now, Fate Immortal Gu has already recovered 50% of its strength. With its existence, the world is already starting to adjust itself. All of those who derailed from their original path before this, even if they took a huge detour, will start to move towards their original fate and continue on that path. At this moment, in Northern Plains, Blazing Heaven Demoness listed her true intentions. After considering them, Fang Yuan replied to Blazing Heaven Demoness. He did not directly reject the 6th request. He said that he could not directly make the decision for such a thing. He would try to inform his master, Purple Mountain True Monarch, but whether he would show up or not was the master's decision. Blazing Heaven Demoness expressed her understanding. After both sides reached a consensus, the heavy atmosphere eased slightly. After patiently negotiating, both sides set a new agreement. This alliance agreement was hard to break. Fang Yuan used his previous life's experiences to avoid loopholes in the alliance agreement and increasing the difficulties of breaking it. Fang Yuan estimated that even if Fairy Li Shan had information path Great Grandmaster attainment level, she would still need at least 2 to 3 years to break the agreement. Moreover, Fairy Li Shan was not an information path Great Grandmaster. After setting the alliance agreement, Fang Yuan's safety was assured. He followed the agreement and handed over Self-Strength Immortal Gu to He Lulan. Even though he lost Self-Strength Immortal Gu, Fang Yuan was satisfied with the results. In fact, Blazing Heaven Demoness was not overbearing in this negotiation. Of course, if Fang Yuan refused to hand over Self-Strength Immortal Gu, then that would be another story. Fang Yuan made great gains this time. All in all, this was a fair exchange of benefits. Blazing Heaven Demoness did not try to lay her hands on Fang Yuan's who immortal blessed land, star form, blessed land, Danghun Mountain, or fixed immortal travel. She did not even mention Fairy Li Shan's time luck immortal goo. This showed that she was truly sincere in cooperating with Fang Yuan to be at his wisdom path attainment, fixed immortal travel, or other aspects. Fang Yuan had very great value if used. After achieving a mutually beneficial result by cooperating, Blazing Heaven Demoness would not strike forcefully. After all, in her mind, Fang Yuan was backed by Purple Mountain True Monarch. After He Lu Lan received self-strength immortal goo, Fang Yuan purposely let go of it, and she successfully refined it rapidly that it had finally returned to her. He Lu Lan sighed as she used the immortal Gu to at once. Her body shook as 3 strength path phantoms appeared. These 3 phantoms were not burly and rough-looking men like before. They were similar to He Lu Lan's own appearance. They were all peerless beauties. Fairy Li Shan was overjoyed at this. Little Lan, you have finally unraveled the biggest obstacle in your heart and found your true self. He Lu Lan nodded in joy. When she killed He Chung personally, she felt refreshed, her breathing became more relaxed, and she felt like she had started a new life. The strength path phantoms in front of her were proof. He Lu Lan smiled and laughed. She turned towards Blazing Heaven Demoness. Elder Ant, don't you want He Fan's time path inheritance? I can help you. Blazing Heaven Demoness heard He Lu Lan calling her Elder Ant and trembled from excitement. She knew that He Lu Lan actually hated her. After all, if it were not for her injury, He Lu Lan's mother would not have exposed herself during the course of events when undercover in He tribe that in a way. Blazing Heaven Demoness could be considered the killer of He Lu Lan's mother. He Lu Lan continued. Next, I will return to He tribe by infiltrating it. I will find He Fan's inheritance and obtain it afterwards. No. Blazing Heaven Demoness and Fairy Li Shan shouted in disagreement. He Lu Lan's words made them severely shocked. Back then, Su Xianair died because of this. He Lu Lan wanted to walk on Su Xianair's former path. How could her 2 aunts allow tragedy to strike again? Don't worry. I have already planned this for a long time. He Lu Lan expected their reactions. She placed her arms behind her as she walked slowly, analyzing calmly. Times are different now. The 4 elders of He tribe would not leave their base easily after this battle. With He Cheng's death, He tribe's reputation has sunken. In the following days, many super forces will collaborate and deal with He tribe. With He tribe's current strength, they cannot hold on to so many resources anymore. This is a rare opportunity. I will get into He tribe and obtain the highest authority. It is time this super force had a new owner. He Lu Lan had great ambition. Even Fang Yuan was shocked at her goals. Old ancestor Shui who only wanted to steal some resources. He even hid himself during the process, fearful of He tribe's revenge. But He Lu Lan actually wanted to take over all of He tribe. It is too dangerous. Fairy Li Shan shook her head. I will not allow it. Blazing Heaven Demoness spoke plainly, but she showed off a stance that did not allow rebuking. He Lu Lan looked at her aunts fearlessly. She smiled. I know that you are concerned about me, but I'm afraid you have the wrong idea. This is my decision. I'm not discussing it with you. You can refuse to cooperate with me, but you cannot interfere with my choice. Fairy Li Shan and Blazing Heaven Demoness looked at each other speechlessly. He Lu Lan knew that it was hard to accomplish this goal herself, but if she had the help of both her aunts, along with Fang Yuan's strength, it would be of huge help to her. The danger would be lower, and she would have a higher chance of succeeding. Fine, I will give you some assurance. He Lu Lan said, taking out a mask. This mask was emanating with the aura of an immortal goo. Attitude goo? At once, Fairy Li Shan stared with wide-opened eyes. Fang Yuan's gaze was fixed onto this mask. Attitude goo was a legendary immortal goo. It was recorded in the Legends of Ren Zhu, and also one of the immortal goo that Fang Yuan was searching for. That was because Attitude goo was the core immortal goo of Familiar Face. Fang Yuan had the modified immortal killer move Vaguely Familiar Face. If he fused Attitude goo into it, his disguise would surely be at a higher level. Blazing Heaven Demoness had a puzzled look. This goo was once in He Fan's hands. He Fan doted on his granddaughter. "Hey Feng Yu," and gave attitude goo to her. Hey Feng Yu was a spoiled brat. As a mortal, she brought the immortal goo to roam the icy plane. In the end, she was targeted by a mysterious goo immortal and vanished. Attitude goo also disappeared as a result and never showed up again. Hey Lulan's lips curled up. She toyed around with attitude goo. That's right. I obtained this attitude goo from the icy plane. Fairy Lishan was curious. Little Lon, when did you go to the icy plane? Wait, that's right. I purposely went to the northern icy plane for my immortal ascension because I had clues of attitude goo's whereabouts. That was the only way I could subdue attitude goo, by borrowing the heavenly might of the tribulation. Haha, I will not talk about the specific details. Hey Lulan explained. Fairy Lishan was surprised. She assessed Hey Lulan again. Feeling complex emotions, she was both happy and dejected. Nobody found out that Hey Lulan had obtained attitude goo, and she did not tell anyone either. Even Fairy Lishan was kept in the dark. This child has grown up after all. Blazing Heaven Demonist sighed internally. Hey Lulan wore the mask, saying plainly, "From now onwards, I am Fairy Black Moon." Blazing Heaven Demonist clapped and smiled. Excellent. With attitude goo as well as the genuine Hey tribe bloodline, this matter might very well succeed. Fang Yuan was shocked. Hey Lulan is Fairy Black Moon. Chapter 949, Divine Concealment. Fang Yuan observed Hey Lulan closely. Hey Lulan's appearance had changed greatly after wearing the mask. Clad in black and gold armored martial attire, with short hair and bright eyes, a heroic and domineering aura radiated around her and gave an oppressive sensation to others. She unexpectedly looked almost the same as Fairy Black Moon's appearance, which Fang Yuan had seen in the records from Central Continent back in his previous life. Attitude goo influences not my eyes, but my mind. Right now, the person I am looking at is still Hey Lulan wearing attitude goo, but my mind is perceiving her as a different person. This is far too huge of a coincidence. It seems Hey Lulan is undoubtedly Fairy Black Moon. Fang Yuan was convinced of this, understanding the hidden inside details of his previous life that I in his previous life. Hey Lulan had become the winner of the Imperial Court contest. According to history, she was a tyrant and was later assassinated. But in fact, she had not died. She joined Central Continent's Spirit Affinity House and became the next generation fairy of Spirit Affinity House. And later, she returned to Northern Plains, leading Central Continent's Goo Immortals, wrecking 88 True Yang building and destroying the spiritual pillar of Northern Plains' Goo Immortal world. If that was the case, how was Hey Lulan able to get in touch with Spirit Affinity House? Fang Yuan immediately thought of Mo Yao's will. Hey Lulan won in the Imperial Court contest, entered Imperial Court Blessed Land, and obtained Mo Yao's will. And under the influence of Mo Yao's will, she joined Spirit Affinity House. As for how big of an influence Mo Yao's will was, Fang Yuan was not sure. His intuition told him that this guess should be the truth of history during his previous life. It was only that in this life, because of Fang Yuan's interference, the whole situation was thrown into disorder. Mo Yao's will influenced Fang Yuan and almost caused him to die. So when I was in Northern Plains, I had already caused a huge influence to the future of Central Continent. Sure enough, the butterfly effect is beyond imagination. But now, Hey Lulan is still in Northern Plains. If so, who will Spirit Affinity House appoint as the next generation fairy? Will it be Feng Jinhuang? Fang Yuan let his thoughts wander. He felt that since Hey Lulan was no longer involved, Feng Jinhuang was the most likely candidate to inherit the position of the next generation fairy. Zhao Lianyun, you can be the next generation fairy of Spirit Affinity House, as long as you successfully obtain this inheritance. Standing in front of the Thieving Heaven Inheritance's entrance, a wisdom path Goo Immortal of Spirit Affinity House, Su Hao, spoke to Zhao Lianyun. Zhao Lianyun gazed at the huge entrance of light with a resolute expression. I don't care about being the next generation fairy. I only want to save Brother Ma Hongyun as quickly as possible. Illusory Fairy Li Juning stood beside Su Hao, revealing a slight smile as she heard this. She softly stroked Zhao Lianyun's cheek, revealing a bewitching smile. Cute little sister, this is a Thieving Heaven inheritance. As long as you can successfully inherit it, you will be very likely to have the power to save your lover. Zhao Lianyun blushed. Her eyes, however, were sober and calm. She was an otherworldly demon, a transmigrator. She was not so easy to deceive. Zhao Lianyun persisted in asking, I am only a mortal. Can this inheritance immediately let me ascend and become a Gu immortal? The female Gu immortal, Li Juning, did not have an answer to this. In fact, she also did not know the specific contents of the inheritance. She glanced at the male Gu immortal Su Hao before continuing. Even if you can't immediately become a Gu immortal, by obtaining Thieving Heaven's inheritance, you will become the strongest competitor for the position of the next generation fairy of Spirit Affinity House. Don't underestimate this position. As long as you succeed, you can borrow the sect's strength to save your lover. Our Spirit Affinity House is one of the 10 great ancient sects of Central Continent. Only super forces like ours can match up to old ancestor Shuehu and save your brother Ma Hongyun. I understand. Zhao Lianyun nodded and did not speak any further, taking a firm step forward into the entrance of light and disappearing within. Do you think she can succeed? Illusory fairy Li Juning let out a sigh and asked with a worried expression that Su Hao, however, was confident. We have already confirmed that Zhao Lianyun is an otherworldly demon. If even she can't succeed, who can? He continued, I know you are worried the inheritance will have difficult tests, and Zhao Lianyun might not be able to pass them since she is only a mortal. But you don't know much about this aspect. After these last years of research, I have already confirmed what the qualification for Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable Inheritance tests are. As long as one is an otherworldly demon, they can easily obtain his inheritance, and there are no other dangerous tests. I just don't know how much Zhao Lianyun can grow by inheriting this. Li Juning felt at ease at her husband's words. I wouldn't be surprised even if Zhao Lianyun were to immediately advance to a Gu immortal. After all, this is Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable's arrangement. Compared to ascending to immortal, I want his formless hand more. Back then, if only I had a slightly stronger immortal killer move, I would not have been defeated by Feng Jiuge. Su Hao's fists were clenched as he said this, his eyes flickering with a vague light of hatred. No organization would lack internal strife. Spirit Affinity House naturally was not an exception. After Feng Jiuge disappeared, many Gu immortals of Spirit Affinity House tacitly agreed to trouble Fairy Bai Qing and Su Hao and Li Juning. This couple were the most important people in the anti-Feng faction. Li Juning consoled her husband. Heaven's Envy Manor had sent the news of the deaths of Ao, Shui and Lingmei, and Feng Jiuge has been missing for so long. He might already be dead as well. Why would you be bothered by a dead person? Su Hao discontentedly gritted his teeth. Humph. In the past, Feng Jiuge had such might that almost anything he said in the sect was carried out automatically, suppressing us for so many years. I was dispatched to comprehend the Thieving Heaven inheritance. This was also him removing me from a seat of power. But it was fortunate. I became the person who has the most understanding of Thieving Heaven's inheritances and have the highest authority regarding this matter. Otherwise, how could we have openly taken charge of Zhao Lianyun? Li Juning repeatedly nodded. At present, Feng Jinhuang is the top candidate for the next generation's fairy, but Zhao Lianyun's appearance is a new variable, becoming the competitor with the highest threat to Feng Jinhuang. If we could support her to rise to the status, we would not only be able to suppress that slut Bai Qing, but also can make use of it to regain authority. Zhao Lianyun was just newly arrived, but had already fallen into the power struggle within Spirit Affinity House, becoming a powerful weapon for Su Hao and Li Juning to fight for authority, as the saying goes. In this world, people often had no control of the situation. Su Hao was just about to say something when his gaze suddenly focused, becoming very surprised. She came out so quickly. In front of the two immortals, Zhao Lianyun's figure gradually appeared from thin air. Su Hao hurriedly asked, The Thieving Heaven inheritance has disappeared. This means she has succeeded. Is it really so simple? Even if he had done deep research and was mentally prepared, he could not avoid having an envious feeling right now. Li Juning had already moved ahead to welcome Zhao Lianyun. Zhao Lianyun was out of the inheritance space and appeared somewhat clueless and dazed right now. How was it? Did you succeed? What did you inherit? Under the heat of the moment, Li Junying grabbed Zhao Linyun's small, tender shoulder and shook it fiercely. Zhao Linyun frowned from the pain. I am also not too sure. There was a dazzling light after I entered. Then a will appeared. He told me to accept the rank 9 immortal killer move, divine concealment. Divine concealment? Hearing this term, Su Hao and Li Junying's eyes opened wide as they glanced at each other, both seeing the shock in each other's eyes. Zhao Linyun, however, was disappointed, asking anxiously, I did not become a Gu immortal, and also didn't experience any changes. Can I still save Brother Mahongyun? Su Hao reacted at this moment, and started laughing heartily, replying firmly, Of course. I did not think the true content of this inheritance was this. Being able to inherit divine concealment is a gargantuan fortune. Rank 9 immortal killer move divine concealment. Li Junying also involuntarily let out a gasp. In the past, when thieving heaven demon Venerable created Theft Path, he stole the treasures of the world with no one able to forecast or deduce his movements. Why was that the case? It was rumored that it was because of two defensive killer moves thieving heaven demon Venerable possessed. One was divine concealment. The other was ghostly concealment. Zhao Linyun's eyes opened wide. Divine concealment. Ghostly concealment? Li Junying nodded. Right. Divine concealment makes it so that no thoughts, wills, or emotions can deduce your state or origins. Do you know what this means? The methods of probing and deducing of almost all wisdom path Gu immortals in the world come from these three aspects: thought, will, and emotion. And with divine concealment, you are immune to the deductions of almost all wisdom path Gu immortals. Rank 9 divine concealment. Only a rank 9 wisdom path Gu immortal can have a chance to succeed in making deductions about you. Su Hao continued. This is actually still not its most amazing aspect. You might not even believe it when I say it, but the most amazing thing is that divine concealment can make Gu masters immune to heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities. Li Junying's expression looked enchanted, while Zhao Linyun still looked uncomprehending. Su Hao could not help but laugh. He realized Zhao Linyun was only a mortal and not a Gu immortal. Thus she did not understand the significance of this that he patiently explained. Heaven's will is a kind of will. You have divine concealment. Since heaven's will can't probe you, it can't send calamities and tribulations to you. You have already escaped the detection of heaven's will. When you ascend to a mortal later, you won't attract any heavenly tribulation or earthly calamity. After thieving heaven demon Venerable created divine concealment, no calamities and tribulations befell him. But this has its disadvantages as well. Calamities and tribulations are not entirely bad. They are a major way to increase the number of Dao marks a Gu immortal has. In the future, although you won't face calamities and tribulations, and will be incomparably safe, you won't be able to increase your quantity of Dao marks through calamities and tribulations, and your accomplishments would be limited. Unless you have the other methods of thieving heaven demon Venerable to support your cultivation. In records of history, thieving heaven demon Venerable could even steal Dao marks. Zhao Linyun's eyes moved round and round in puzzlement as she probed. Divine concealment is so powerful. Then what about ghostly concealment? Su Hao, who had been talking with confidence, did not have an answer for this, and Li Junying also slowly shook her head. Divine concealment, ghostly concealment. The former is known by everyone, but the latter is extremely mysterious. There are many guesses and public opinions vary, but they are all unreliable, and there has never been a publicly accepted answer. Su Hao replied. Li Junying spoke faintly. But since both are equally famous, it also must be extraordinary. Zhao Linyun blinked, her tone one of astonishment. Besides inheriting divine concealment, I also obtained a clue. Another thieving heaven inheritance is hidden in Luo Pa Valley, and that inheritance is about ghostly concealment. What? A second thieving heaven inheritance? And it is hidden in Luo Pa Valley? Su Hao and Li Junying was surprised and joyous. They glanced at each other with bright eyes. Chapter 950, Unexpected Compensation. Su Hao and Li Junying were very perceptive. Zhao Linyun's information was very important. Su Hao and Li Junying immediately thought of Feng Jiugu rather than the thieving heaven inheritance. Combined with the information from the central continent Gu immortals who returned, they were almost certain. The reason why Feng Jiuge disappeared was because he was trapped inside the Thieving Heaven inheritance. The Thieving Heaven inheritance must have been used by the enemy to trap Feng Jiuge. Su Hao was a wisdom path Gu immortal. He said this after deducing. Then what should we do now? Li Junying's words made them sink into silence. Zhao Lianyan looked around left to right and back. She did not speak. The reason why said she mentioned this was because she wanted to return to Northern Plains, using Spirit Affinity House's power to save Ma Hongyun. But she did not know about the internal conflicts within Spirit Affinity House. Su Hao and Li Juning looked at each other. They interacted with their gazes. Both of their gazes gradually turned cold. They had chemistry and a close rapport built over the years. They quickly came to an agreement. They decided to suppress this information and temporarily not report it. They wanted Feng Jiuge to die, that if they reported it, Spirit Affinity House would definitely send people to save him. If Feng Jiuge was still alive, what would happen once he was saved? After dragging it out for 3 days, both immortals reached the time limit and reported this information. As expected, the higher-ups in Spirit Affinity House were alarmed. They organized a group to save him. As for the otherworldly demon Zhao Lianyun, she became the key person in this rescue mission. She was brought to Northern Plains. Several days later, Northern Plains Zombie Alliance, Dark Flow Giant City. Boom! A loud sound was heard as intense explosions occurred. The entirety of Giant City trembled. What is going on? What is going on? Is someone attacking Dark Flow Giant City? In Dark Flow Giant City, people had fallen to the ground. Shocked cries were heard. Dark Flow Giant City was enormous. It had a total of 7 layers. The lower 5 layers were the residences of mortal Gu masters and were very bustling and clamorous. 1 layer above was where people with some connection to immortal zombies resided. The highest layer was reserved for immortals only. At this moment, at the highest layer of Dark Flow Giant City, a thick smoke rose into the sky. Cough, cough. Fang Yuan was covered in soot as he came out of the secret room. He was coughing nonstop. He failed again when Refining Star thought immortal Gu. Ever since they made the new alliance agreement, Fang Yuan did not return to his blessed land. He came to Dark Flow Giant City and used Northern Plains Zombie Alliance's Refinement Path Gu formation. He was not a Refinement Path Gu immortal. He could not set up a Refinement Path Gu formation of such a level himself. Fang Yuan tried to refine Star thought. Immortal Gu again. Blazing Heaven Demonis had funded him a huge amount of immortal materials for Gu refinement in accordance with the agreement. This time, the immortal materials were not tampered with at all. Fang Yuan had an easy time during the refinement, but during the final few steps, the Gu refinement failed, and an intense explosion occurred. Not only was the entire refinement path Gu formation blown to bits, the explosion also destroyed the secret room, alerting all of the Gu immortals in Dark Flow Giant City. Even the mortals in the lower layers felt it. At the final few steps, the Dao marks will undergo a unique change that cannot be controlled. The interaction of Dao marks would only stabilize under one condition. That is the successful refinement of Star Thought Immortal Gu. This step is purely dependent on luck. Fang Yuan sighed internally. Man is the spirit of all beings. Gu are the essence of heaven and earth. All living beings, including humans, could not directly manipulate Dao marks. Be it Gu masters, desolate beasts, desolate plants. Even if they had Dao marks in them, they could only make use of them through Gu worms. Thus, when Gu immortals refine Gu, they could not directly manipulate the Dao marks. They could not control intense changes in the Dao marks. To make a rather crude comparison, refining a rank 6 immortal Gu was like playing golf. The Gu immortals' preparations are all to ensure that the golf ball moves according to the path that they had planned, but the long path that the ball needs to travel on is filled with over 100 holes. Only when the golf ball falls into the correct hole at the end of the path would the Gu refinement succeed. Gu immortals could only ensure that the golf ball would move according to their wishes during the first half of the route. By the second half, the ground would be uneven and filled with pits. The Gu immortals would not be able to control how the ball moved anymore. Thus, whether the ball could enter the proper hole depended on luck. Even though Blazing Heaven Demonis no longer tampered with the immortal materials, her funding is not without cost. I need to pay her back eventually. Refining immortal goo is simply too hard. The success rate is too low. Maybe I can seek help from Land Spirit. He should have a strong refinement path, immortal goo, or a special refinement method to increase the rate of successfully refining immortal goo. In history, Longhair Ancestor was known as the #1 refinement path immortal of all times. The number of immortal goo that he had refined in his life shocked countless people. Even though Longhair Ancestor had died, his land spirit was alive, and Langya Blessed Land was still intact. Fang Yuan's goo refinement had failed again. He even suffered injuries that he decided to seek help from Langya Land Spirit and try to increase his chances, even if he had to pay a huge price. I'd suggest you to first try refining the strength path, immortal goo. At this time, Fairy Lishan came over and gave Fang Yuan a suggestion. Fairy Lishan could no longer stay in Snowy Mountain Blessed Land. Ever since they killed He Chong, Fairy Lishan had been staying inside Dark Flow Giant City. Her relationship with Blazing Heaven Demoness was exposed. Everyone knew about it. Earlier, Blazing Heaven Demoness had led a band of immortal zombies to assault the Snowy Mountain Blessed Land demonic path goo immortals, with high rates of success. In actual fact, it was because Fairy Lishan was the traitor exposing intelligence to Blazing Heaven Demoness. Fairy Lishan was an information path quasi-great Grandmaster, even though she was restricted by the alliance agreement of the forces of Snowy Mountain Blessed Land. She could skirt around the restrictions and aid Blazing Heaven Demoness, while only suffering mild injuries from violating it. How could old ancestor Shui who keeps such a traitor? After meeting with Blazing Heaven Demoness, he publicly announced the expulsion of Fairy Lishan and declared her to be an enemy of Snowy Mountain Blessed Land. Fairy Lishan had offended the biggest demonic path force in Northern Plains, but she was welcomed by Zombie Alliance. Her relationship with Blazing Heaven Demoness made her one of them. Furthermore, she was the key person in forcing old ancestor Shui to give in just now. In Dark Flow Giant City, Fairy Lishan was very well respected by the immortal zombies. Fang Yuan heard Fairy Lishan's words and frowned. Please explain. Fairy Lishan sighed. There is a change in the situation. My sister's funding for your refinement of Star Thought immortal goo might have to be delayed. Why is that the case? Fang Yuan could not understand. They had just set the agreement. Was Blazing Heaven Demoness going to break the agreement so quickly? That did not make sense, because funding Fang Yuan's refinement of Star Thought immortal goo was Blazing Heaven Demoness' idea. Fairy Lishan explained the reason, and Fang Yuan soon understood why. The reason was that the cooperation between Blazing Heaven Demoness and old ancestor Shui, who had a huge impact on Northern Plains after Snowy Mountain and Zombie Alliance, went into a ceasefire. The conflict between both forces received much attention. Some of the other regions even looked into the matter, but Blazing Heaven Demoness and old ancestor Shui who knew their limits. They cooperated and settled this conflict rapidly and peacefully. The Righteous Path forces in Northern Plains were excitedly watching this, as they wanted to see a conflict between them. Suddenly, there was a turn of events that the conflict ended. Zombie Alliance's headquarters sent out a mandatory mission in addition to the contribution points. All the members of Northern Plains Zombie Alliance had to work together, using all their resources to refine a giant goo formation. This goo formation's sole use was to protect the immortal zombie graveyard. If a situation like old ancestor Shui, who's stealing bodies, happened again, the goo formation would activate and defend the place. If it could not defend the place, the power of the goo formation would teleport these immortal zombie bodies out of Northern Plains. Right now, Zombie Alliance is putting in a huge sum. Not just the Northern Plains Zombie Alliance branch, but the other 3 branches, and even the headquarters are building this giant immortal goo formation together. Just here alone, we are using 13 immortal goo and countless supplementary mortal goo. Most of the immortal goo are sent here from the headquarters, but we also have to refine a number of them. Thus, Dark Flow Giant City is recalling all the immortal zombies back to refine goo. There will definitely be insufficient storage in Dark Flow Giant City. The immortal zombies will have to use their personal resources. Fairy Lishan explained in detail. Of course, the immortal zombies would be compensated for contributing their personal resources. The Zombie Alliance headquarters was giving out huge amounts of contribution points, much higher than ordinary times, to compensate the members. This was among the biggest actions taken by Zombie Alliance in the last 1,000 years. An immense amount of contribution points made the immortal zombie members feel enthusiastic about refining goo. As long as they participated and expended immortal materials, regardless of whether they failed or succeeded, they would be able to obtain a huge sum of contribution points. This was a benefit rarely seen in 1,000 years. Furthermore, after setting up this goo formation, the Zombie Alliance graveyard would be safe without any future worries. The immortal zombies in Zombie Alliance were also delighted to see the creation of this giant immortal goo formation. The immortal zombies from Eastern Sea were temporarily unable to return to Eastern Sea. They stayed and refined immortal goo and a huge number of supplementary mortal goo. Blazing Heaven Demoness was in the same place. She could no longer fund Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's plan to refine Star Thought immortal goo was obstructed. He could not even continue using the goo refinement secret room that he had already rescinded the Zombie Alliance agreement that had been placed on him. Blazing Heaven Demoness, who was the branch leader, had the authority to do this. In Dark Flow Giant City, Fang Yuan and Fairy Lishan were both outsiders. Except that Fairy Lishan was much more popular and well-regarded than Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan frowned as he thought. In the 500 years of my previous life, Zombie Alliance had this plan too, and they even succeeded. But the reason was not because old ancestor Shui who stole immortal zombies from the graveyard. It seems that the course of history will not alter easily. In this life, Zombie Alliance is building this giant immortal goo formation again. Fang Yuan could not stop them, of course. Zombie Alliance was a huge force. Blazing Heaven Demoness, who was just the leader of a branch, was already able to suppress him firmly, if not for Fang Yuan's immense value, which interested Blazing Heaven Demoness. Choosing to cooperate with him, Fang Yuan might have been dead already. But no matter how strong Blazing Heaven Demoness was, Fang Yuan would not let go of the compensation that he was entitled to. Blazing Heaven Demoness action is going against our alliance agreement, right? Fang Yuan asked as he looked at Fairy Lishan. Fairy Lishan smiled bitterly. This was indeed Blazing Heaven Demoness violating the agreement. According to their alliance agreement, Blazing Heaven Demoness had to give Fang Yuan quite a sum of compensation. Unless Fang Yuan was willing to forego the compensation claim, Blazing Heaven Demoness would have to pay him. Otherwise, the backlash of the agreement would heavily injure her. Blazing Heaven Demoness was feeling regret towards this as well. If she had known this, why would she fund Fang Yuan? Wasn't a different condition better? Even if she wanted to fund him, she could do so in a different way that did not break the agreement. The plan of Zombie Alliance caught Blazing Heaven Demoness off guard. Since Fang Yuan refused to let go, she could only compensate him.